This has been something I've been wanting to work on for a long time. Ever since I finished Undertale for the first time in 2021, I've wanted to make a video about my thoughts about Undertale and what it means to me. And with 2025 being the year that this wonderful experience of a video game turns 10, I think now is as good a time as any to finally make that video. This is probably my 4th or 5th attempt at it, but with time comes new context and new experiences, and I think there's a much deeper story I want to tell about my experiences with Undertale. I'm in a unique position to be someone who finished Undertale for the first time several years after its highest of hype years in 2015 and 2016. I wasn't unfamiliar with its contents, even owned it as far back as July 2017, didn't dislike the game in any way, even despite the very excitable community it housed during that time, but for one reason or another, I never actually finished any run of the game, neither neutral, pacifist, or genocide. When I eventually finished the game in 2021, it almost immediately changed my life. It became my favorite game of all time, beating out games like Super Mario Galaxy and The Last of Us, which at the time I thought were unbeatable experiences. But no, an indie-developed game beat out 2 AAA titles. Since then, I've dived so far into the lore and story of this game, made covers and remixes of various songs in the OST, made an entire Let's Play of both the pacifist and genocide playthroughs, and still to this day it is an experience I'm learning new things about and I'm always excited to play again. It's a game I won't get tired of, and a game I feel a deep connection to. However, I'm not here to talk about the game itself and make this a comprehensive review. I mean, you've already read the title, you know this is a personal story. And after all, with a game that's this well documented and explored in the last 10 years, what can I say that's not already been said? I can't say anything objective about the game itself, and I can't talk about everything in it for newcomers wanting to learn more about it, because this is a game that truly needs to be experienced to be understood. But what I can talk about is my own subjective experiences, and specifically about one moment in this game. There was one moment that completely changed my day-to-day life, and ultimately, whether intended or not, saved my life. But first, let me tell you a story. I'm someone who has been through a lot emotionally. I experienced some incredible lows throughout my life, just like a lot of others have. My journey through depression is a long one, going back to 2018 and still continuing today. Depression isn't really something you're cured of, you just learn how to cope with it. But sometimes, coping is impossible. There are 2 times in my life that I can remember where if things had gone just slightly differently, I might not be sitting in front of a microphone telling you this story. March of 2019, shortly after my birthday, and the entirety of 2024, which is when our story takes place. I'm gonna have to be careful what I say, as there are still wounds that are healing from everything that happened, but I'll try to tell it as best as I can. I cannot stress enough here, though, I am specifically not referring to people directly on purpose. If you think you know who the people in this story are, and given the time frame if you know my content well enough that a minuscule number of you might be able to guess, I beg of you to keep it to yourself. I have no hard feelings toward anyone even tangentially related to this story, and they don't deserve any negativity for what ultimately was something only I was going through and should have never happened in the first place. What happened was a lot of miscommunication, mainly from me, and a lot of realizations that I didn't have the mental capacity to process yet. During 2024, I got involved with a group of people who I later came to find out were unintentionally causing me to get overwhelmed by dark truths I hadn't yet revealed to myself and by being constantly pulled back and forth between 2 different belief systems. I work in a warehouse in a very conservative part of the US, while the people I was spending time with were overtly progressive. Couple this with being gay and struggling to be so openly, while the people you're friends with are able to do so, and it's a recipe for a depressive spiral. Cue April 2024, when a decision I made I shall keep private ultimately sparked the worst depressive episode I've ever experienced in my life. Over the course of the rest of 2024, there were several ups and downs, and each dip after a crest was even more draining than the last, culminating in the 9th of July 2024, which I will forever remember as the worst day I've ever had to suffer through. And more importantly, twice over this period of 7 months, I almost killed myself. I was within possible minutes before both times being stopped by the same person from this group of people I'd begun spending time with. It was a support structure I didn't realize I'd had, and was something I was immensely grateful for. I went into therapy, got the treatment I needed, improved my life greatly, and all seemed well. Then suddenly in October, that support structure got stripped away from me, and I was back to where I was before. An emotional outburst I should have been able to control pushed me out of that group, and that nearly caused me to relapse. That support structure was gone, the friends I built up were gone, and I was now left questioning how good the friendships I had really were. Initially, I was in denial about the whole thing, but as time went on, I grew more and more bitter about the circumstances, but I tried my absolute damnedest to not let it get to me. Some days were harder than others, but on New Year's Eve, well into the late hours of the night on a live stream, I booted up Undertale for the first time in about 4 months and played through Pacifist from beginning to end one more time. And I played it to get up to one specific moment. This one right here.
text still hits you, man.
This is a line of text that many have been shaped by. There was a comment on another musician's cover of Hopes and Dreams that said they had this line of text tattooed on their body, and something happened when I stopped here during this playthrough. I suddenly felt all my worries and fears strip away from me, like a weight was being lifted from me. I felt a newfound emotional clarity and peace. I stared at this text for a short while, letting the music play in the background. I let this feeling wash over me. Whatever power this line of text has, I don't know what it is, but I found my peace in it. The words, "despite everything it's still you," were the centerpiece of one of my last attempts at writing this video, not unlike this one. But I think the message I want to get across is different now. I feel a new sense of optimism and positivity within me. I don't know why it only happened now. I've played through this game hundreds of times and seen this dialogue hundreds of times. Maybe it is the context, I don't know for sure. But this line of text, whether Toby Fox knew it was capable of doing so or not, saved my life. It potentially saved millions of people's lives. This simple sentence holds so much power. For me, Undertale has since become not only a story of loss, hopelessness, and freedom, but an allegory for mental health and the stages of grief. While a loose connection, you can link every character throughout Undertale to a step along the stages of grief. Toriel incites the grief, Papyrus' denial, Undyne is anger, Mettaton is bargaining, Alphys is depression, and Asgore is acceptance. And the text, "despite everything it's still you," appears right before you fight Asgore. So this text feels to me like a therapist telling their patient that they're still who they once were, which fills them with a new sense of peace, and it finally lets them enter the acceptance phase. Like I said, it's a loose connection, but I think it's still why I found myself drawn to this dialogue time and time again. In my initial versions of this video, I was long since out of my 2019 depression battle, and the wounds from it had largely healed. So tapping into that emotional pain wasn't as easy as it was for me when writing this version of the video. But having just come out of my worst year, I can see now why I got drawn to this dialogue. It feels to me like the game is talking to me, like this dialogue was written specifically for me to find during my lowest of lows and help me come out the other side. Toby perhaps didn't intend this text to be read in this way. The text makes sense in the context of the game's world given what Frisk had just been through up to that point, but I think that's what makes Undertale such a masterclass in storytelling. A game becomes less special when you have all the answers, and as frustrating as it can be when nothing's clear, having a game be filled with different interpretations of the same information is something that very few can say for themselves, let alone in today's day and age where data miners and leakers reveal all the secrets about a game before it even releases. Toby Fox made a truly deep and poignant experience that even now, 10 years on, we're still theorizing about, coming up with new interpretations and exploring different ideas with. Even going so far as to create our own worlds derivative of his work based on the stories we want to see, or even entire separate stories inspired by his work. And that's something I think Undertale deserves respect for. For better or worse, the community surrounding Undertale has such a creative mind and has made some truly wonderful things. I wish I could experience Undertale blind again. I would love to play this game with the base knowledge of nothing and understand what it was like to play it completely blind. I knew too much about the game in the lead up to my playthrough where I finished it for the first time. It wasn't as special as it could have been. But it's still a very special game for me, and one thing that can't be taken away is that it had the power with just 5 words to save my life. It had the power to speak directly to my soul and heal me with little more than the text box. There's no other games that I've done quite the same except for maybe one shot. This text box is what I ultimately want you to take away from this video. Even despite all your trials and hardships, underneath all the rust, scars, and dirt from many failures and losses, you're still who you once were. Nothing has truly changed, you're just a bit older and wiser. Or, in the simplest of terms, despite everything, it's still you. Thank you for 10 years, Undertale, and thanks for watching. Hey there, thanks again for watching. I just want to tack something onto the end of this video really quick to add that if this video is coming out when I hope it's coming out, then I should have just released my Undertale tribute album of the same name as this video. It's an album I made as my tribute to this wonderful game that was backed up by Materia, who own the copyright of Undertale's soundtrack. I didn't mention this before because I wanted to add it as a last note so it doesn't seem like this video is entirely a promotional piece for that album, even if it was just a mention. But the album is available on all streaming services and Bandcamp as well. You can find it linked below, if you're interested. And just as a last thing, this channel is no longer going to be used for music. I know it's been like 4 years since I last made a remix or any kind of electronic song for this channel, and I don't want to be following that direction anymore. This channel will become a place more for videos like this, video essays and commentaries. That's a video style I want to lean into more because I've never had an outlet for it. If you subscribe for my EDM remixes of Undertale songs, those will still be around, but I won't be uploading any new music, so feel free to unsubscribe now. Otherwise, if you have interest in what I have to say about various things for some reason, then stick around. Anyway, the video's over now. Thanks for watching, all the best, take care, and I'll see you in the skies.